All right, everybody, here it is. Proof that good things do indeed come to those who wait, because you have been on tenterhooks. The edge of your seats is last year's Christmas message waiting for this year's. Here it is. Wrapping up presents is difficult, but wrapping up an entire year is almost impossible. There's so much that's happened this year, from war in Ukraine, from multiple prime ministers, from a World Cup in the middle of winter, from snow just before Christmas, Commonwealth Games, when Prince, as he was then, Charles, turned up in a car that ran on wine. I mean, poof. But one of the other conversations which I feel like has dominated a lot of our airwaves this year has been something around royalty. What is it that we expect of our royals? Maybe nothing. Maybe some of us wish there were no royals to expect anything of. But anyway, the conversation has been there. Given that there are some royals in our country at least, what is it that we expect from them? If you cast your minds back a few months ago, we had the Platinum Jubilee when there was, singers and dancers outside Buckingham Palace and Union Jacks waving everywhere, and we were all eating cream teas and some lemon trifle that we were all supposed to make. Well, we had that. Then we had the death of the Queen. Then we had the immediate succession of Prince Charles to become the King. Then we had to get used to sporting fixtures where we sang the same national anthem, but we subbed out King for Queen, and that still feels weird. We had the snake of the line of mourners who wanted to see the Queen's coffin going, circling the centre of London. We've had all kinds of discussions about what it is that we appreciated or not about the Queen, what it is we appreciate or not about the new King, whether we think it's worth putting his head on some coins or whether he should just pass it on to Will, or whether we should disband the whole thing altogether. How much should it cost to put on a coronation? Should we have a bank holiday? Yes to that one. So you have all these expectations about royals and what they should be like and what they shouldn't be like, and whether we think the Queen was fantastic because she never said anything, or terrible because she never said anything. And then we've got playing out on Netflix, we've got Harry and Meghan, and they're saying stuff. And everybody has their view about that. So, given that our collective conversation has been bouncing around to some extent royals this year, it made me wonder about the Christmas story and some bizarre happenings in the lives of a few of the key characters in the story. Think about it for a moment. Months ago, there were some wise, learned scholars, some stargazers over in the East. Don't know where that is, but the East. And they were plotting the course of planets. They were looking at the stars. They were looking at their charts. They were reading some old prophets and holy texts, probably. And they recognized that this alignment of stars and planets means something symbolic, something significant. In fact, it means the birth of a new king. So what they do is they load up their camels with everything they need for a long journey and with presents appropriate for a king. They're expecting a palace. They're expecting celebrity. They're expecting power and authority. They're expecting riches and wealth. And so they load up those things. They load up signs and expressions of power and riches and wealth and authority. They load up gold and spices and scents and all kinds of things that they want to give to the king. On the hillside outside this little town of Bethlehem, the evening routine of some shepherds is blown wide open when the sky is filled with angels, if you like, just shining a celestial neon flashing sign down to downtown Bethlehem saying, get down to the centre of town because there the Saviour of the world has been born. Now, I have no idea what the shepherds were expecting when they ran into town, but you have to imagine that if that's the forward press release, is a sky full of angels, if that's the warm-up act, then your expectation, the bar's been raised pretty high, right? They're probably expecting something pretty impressive. They're probably expecting some limousines. They're probably expecting some soldiers knocking around the place. They'll be expecting some trumpeters and music. They'll be expecting something pretty incredible. When the wise scholars from the East arrive in the vicinity where they think this new king is born, they go, as you would do, because where a king's born, they go to the palace to meet the old king, expecting that maybe he's had a son. It turns out he hasn't had a son and he doesn't know anything about this new king. But what he does know as he listens to these travellers is if there's a new king in town, if there's a new kid on the block, then this is going to be trouble for him. His authority is going to be squashed. His rule, his reign is going to be challenged. And so immediately he tries to squash this threat. And then something, and this is the weird bit, something so strange happens that each one of these groups of characters, each one of these people, they meet a baby. Maybe a toddler, who knows the timeline. Maybe by the time the wise men got there, maybe it's a toddler. Maybe Jesus is a toddler. They meet a baby, at best a toddler, maybe sucking his thumb, lying in the manger, maybe wandering around in a nappy. No older than that. And something happens in that meeting, where something happens in their spirit, where they're satisfied. The thing they have looked for, well, we appear to have found it in the baby, which was not what the Magi were expecting all the time. All the months they were travelling from the east, they were expecting to give these impressive gifts to somebody impressive. But something happens in that moment where they think, oh, okay, this is the person we've come to worship. We'll hand this baby, this small child, our gifts, and that makes complete sense to us. And then off they go. The shepherds, having run into town looking for all kinds of crazy power and authority, and wow, see this baby and decide, well, okay, that makes sense. We are satisfied with that. Herod, the king of the area, well, he's so threatened by this baby that he decides to kill all babies because he doesn't know which one he needs to squash, and so he decides to squash them all. And as Angie pointed out the other week, there's something so marvellous and yet so nuts about the story because they are satisfied with a baby. This baby that confounded expectations, that wasn't what they thought they were going to see, that wasn't like anything that had come before. But something happened where they're satisfied and they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then they go home. I think we learn two really quick things from this story. First is that those who seek the king find the king. There were plenty of other wise people that were looking at the stars, but they just assumed that the king would come find them. There were plenty of other shepherds, I guess, who must have seen the angels, because you can't hide that many angels. I've tried. They must have seen it, but they didn't run into the centre of town. There were other people in the centre of town in Bethlehem, and they didn't see it. The people who search for the king find the king. And so my first encouragement to you this Christmas is take some time out. Because it's so easy with all of the glitter and the pizzazz and the food to rush through it, and then you get to New Year and you think, oh, that didn't feel very different. Take time out. Go look at some stars. Go listen to some music. Go find some space. Get up early, stay up late, whenever it is. Take some time to search for the baby. Because, encouragement number 2 is, it turns out this isn't some divine game of hide and seek. It turns out the baby wants to be found. It turns out, in fact, that the baby is the primary mover. This baby, named Jesus, is going to grow up into an adult who says of himself, recorded by the Dr. Luke, who we've been reading all about his stories this term. Dr. Luke describes Jesus as saying of himself that he came to save and to seek those who were lost. In other words, he's the first person involved in this game of searching out. He searches out you and I with way greater effort and intensity than we'll ever put into it. And so, this Christmas, may you be given the wisdom and the discipline to carve out some time and go search for the baby. When you do search for the baby, may you be satisfied with the baby. And may you know that the baby searches you, seeks for you, moves heaven and earth to be found by you. May you, as you pour custard and cream and maybe ice cream onto your Christmas Day pudding, be reminded of the lavish, extravagant goodness, kindness, grace and love of God. Which leaves me just to say, have a very happy Christmas.